From the moment Yan entered the world, she possessed a strange gift, the ability to see thin, crimson threads linking people who had shared deep personal bonds. As a child, she had no idea what these threads meant, only that no one else around her could see them. Over time, her understanding grew, and she began sketching what she saw in secret. One day, those drawings revealed a devastating truth. Her father was romantically involved with her mother's sister. When her mother discovered this, rage consumed her, and she attacked her husband with a knife. After losing her father in that tragedy, Yan came to believe her ability was less a blessing and more a curse. Determined not to bring further harm to anyone, she withdrew from the world. By the time she became an adult, years of isolation had plunged her into deep despair, and she resolved to end her life. But every attempt failed. No matter the method or the moment, death never came for her. That's when she realized her strange sight wasn't her only gift. She was also immortal. With the weight of eternity pressing down on her, Yan decided the only way forward was to understand her power. Who had created these mysterious threads? Could others see them too? She began a quiet investigation, hoping the answers might free her from this endless existence. One afternoon, a woman from the building across the street came to her door. Yan ignored the knocking, but when her visitor finally left, she noticed a bag of fresh fruit had been left behind. After years of living on canned peaches, the taste of something fresh awakened a forgotten joy. That same day at school, San was cornered by a group of girls. Instead of rescuing her, he kicked her down and dragged her by the hair, threatening to throw her from the rooftop if she dared report the bullying to the principal. Meanwhile, Yen's uncle, a police officer, was investigating the death of a 29-year-old woman found in her apartment with suspicious marks on her neck and evidence of a break-in. That evening, Yen discovered another bag of fruit on her doorstep with a note from her neighbor, Yoon. While watching the news report on the case, Yen caught sight of a man on a motorcycle outside Yoon's building. Oddly, he bore only a single red thread attached to his head. Hours later, the sound of a motorcycle roared again, and Yen saw the same man breaking into Yoon's apartment. Alarmed, she called the police, but then made a chilling discovery. The intruder's sole connection was to Yoon herself. When Yoon saw them embracing, she froze, ending the call mid-conversation. Confusion clouded her mind, leaving her lost in thought. The following morning, after a long shift, Han returned home to find his niece absent from school. He was startled to see her injured, but when he pressed for details, Sun refused to explain what had happened. Later, while stepping onto the balcony for some fresh air, Han's eyes drifted to Yan's apartment window. Oddly, the panes were covered with cardboard. That night, Han learned that the police station had received a call from someone living in that very apartment. Curious, he went there and rang the doorbell. From behind the peephole, Yan noticed hundreds of red threads swirling above his head. Despite her usual caution, she decided to open the door to explain herself. After clearing up the misunderstanding, she shut the door and Han walked away. That evening, over dinner, Han heard that the woman found dead in her apartment had an ex-boyfriend, and he lived in the same building as Yan. Suspicious, Dong took matters into his own hands. In the early hours of the morning, he slipped into the man's apartment. Using a flashlight, he discovered a storage room filled with unsettling items.
Just as Dong reached for his phone to call Han, Jung emerged and attacked, swinging a metal bar. Dong tried to evade the strike but was hit on the head and collapsed. Realizing something was wrong, Han sped toward the building. Meanwhile, Jung restrained the unconscious policeman, put on a helmet, and headed toward Yoon's apartment across the street. Spotting him, Yeon's sense of danger flared. She grabbed a kitchen knife and rushed after him, but as soon as she stepped outside, a wave of panic consumed her and she fainted. Inside, Yoon opened the door to greet her boyfriend. Her smile faded when she noticed the cold, unfamiliar look in his eyes. Without warning, he seized her by the neck. Yeon appeared at the doorway, but fear rooted her in place. She couldn't move. In that instant, the attacker wrenched the knife from Yeon's grip and slashed at her. Seeing her neighbor hurt, Yoon struck back at him, trying to shield Yeon, but Jung retaliated, knocking her aside. At that moment, Han pulled up outside the building and spotted Yeon's door ajar. Rushing inside, he reached the window just as Jung raised his weapon again. Han drew his gun and fired. The shot struck true. As Jung fell, he caught sight of the red thread above his head vanishing, and strangely, he smiled. Minutes later, an ambulance arrived, taking Yoon to the hospital. After making sure his friend was safe, Han spoke with Yeon, returning a pair of sunglasses she had dropped. Soon after, Sun appeared, and Han was surprised to learn that Yeon and his niece knew each other. Sun revealed they had been classmates in elementary school until Yeon's mother abandoned her shortly after her father's death. For the first time in years, Yeon felt differently about her ability. She had used it to save a life. Maybe it wasn't just a curse. Before dawn, a message arrived from an unknown number. It claimed there was someone else in the world who could see the red threads. The next day, at school, Sun discovered that he had broken into her locker and stolen a letter she'd received. Humiliated in front of her classmates, Sun lashed out to take it back. But he shoved her to the floor and struck her repeatedly. When their teacher entered and saw the fight, she stepped in, defended Sun, and sent her home early. Meanwhile, Han was searching Jung's apartment for clues. In a locked storage room, he found walls completely covered with drawings of red threads. Hundreds of them. At home, Sun tried on a pair of glasses she had found at school. The moment she put them on, a faint crimson wire appeared above her head. She looked at her uncle and saw hundreds of threads radiating from him. Terrified, she screamed. Shaken but curious, Sun walked the streets, watching strangers in the glowing strands that connected them. She noticed some threads were linked between people, others hung loose, and she wondered what stories they told. Hours later, the meaning clicked in her mind. Confident in her new understanding, she returned to school and noticed something unusual. Her teacher was one of the very few in the building without a single red thread. At the same time, Sun discovered something unsettling. He's head was tangled with countless red threads, some even linked to teachers. That day, teacher Gujin introduced the class to a new student, Yeon. Almost immediately, he began mocking her in front of everyone. Worried about his niece's recent behavior, Han visited her school to speak with a teacher. While gathering information about Sun, he asked Gujin if she knew a man named Jung, explaining he had taught mathematics there for the previous year. When she learned her former colleague was a criminal, Gujin was shocked. When asked if Jung wore glasses, she shook her head, saying it wasn't something she had noticed. Later, on the school terrace, he and her gang cornered Sun again. Just as Sun was about to reveal her secret advantage, Yeon appeared and stepped between them. Defending her classmate, Yeon confronted he and threatened to jump off the terrace with her unless she promised to leave them alone. Shaken, he backed down and walked away. Sun, however, warned Yeon never to interfere in her affairs again. That night, Sun trailed he, hoping to gather proof of her connection with teacher Gujin. Her patience paid off. She photographed the two entering a hotel together. When confronted with the image, he taunted her, saying that if it were leaked, only the teacher would suffer the consequences since he was still a minor. Realizing this angle wouldn't work, Sun devised a new plan. She sent the picture directly to teacher Gujin, demanding 20 million won in cash. Her goal was simple: use the money to move to another city. She no longer wanted to live with her uncle nor stay in that school. Later, while accompanying Sun to the bathroom, Yeon noticed her wearing a new pair of glasses, and quickly realized they allowed her to see the red threads. Intrigued, Sun questioned her and confirmed that Yeon also had this ability. She admitted she'd found the glasses by chance at school. Yeon, however, recognized them immediately. They were the same glasses Jung had worn when he died, which meant they could be dangerous. Even after hearing this warning, Sun decided to keep using her newfound ability. To her, it was the perfect weapon to take revenge on those who had tormented her. That night, Sun is at her new boyfriend's house when she receives a message from her teacher, asking her to meet him on the school roof at midnight to collect the money. What Sun doesn't realize is that he was in one of the toilet cubicles when she and Yeon were talking about the red lines, so he already knows about the power of the glasses. He secretly follows Sun to the arcade. While San is taking pictures with her boyfriend, he steals the glasses from her bag. When San notices the glasses are missing, she panics and searches for them but can't find them anywhere. Furious, she calls Yan, accuses her of stealing them, and still decides to go to school to meet her teacher. However, when she arrives, she discovers he lied about having the money. He only lured her there to try and convince her to keep their affair a secret. If the photo gets out, the teacher will not only lose his job, but also his wife and children. San insists on receiving the 20 million won as payment. During their conversation, the man receives a message from his wife and learns she has already seen the photo. Furious, he pushes San off a cliff, believing she destroyed his marriage. Yan, who has just arrived at the school looking for her friend, sees San fall and realizes she has been badly injured. Terrified, she calls an ambulance and accompanies San to the hospital, but the doctors are unable to save her. When Han learns his niece is in the hospital, he's devastated and blames himself, believing she tried to take her own life. Yan assures him she was pushed by someone. The next day, at school, teacher Kim is asked about his wedding date and reveals his engagement has been called off. Now separated from his fiancée, Kim moves in with his sister and brings a stuffed rabbit as a present for his niece. He says he will only be staying for a week as he plans to move to Canada in a few days. That day, when Yan arrives at school, she goes up to the terrace and meets Gyeongjin. Although they are not close, Gyeongjin shows an interest in finding out who pushed San, as she's obsessed with investigations. During the break, teacher Kim finds a pair of glasses on his desk. After trying them on, he too begins to see the red lines. Suddenly, Han enters the room and asks to speak with Miss Gujin. Believing his niece jumped off the cliff, the teacher blames himself for not recognizing her psychological struggles, but Han insists she was pushed. He then asks about Hee's whereabouts, as he's learned she was stalking San.
In an attempt to gather evidence, Han questions San's boyfriend. Ji says that after the photos were taken, San left in a panic to look for her glasses. Watching the store's security footage, Han sees the moment Hai takes San's bag and steals the glasses. Later that evening at dinner, Kim wears the glasses and notices a strange mass of red hair above his brother-in-law's head. When asked about the end of his engagement, Kim explains that one day when he came home from work, he found his fiancée in bed with his friend. Yang and his brother-in-law step outside to talk, and Kim discovers that Yang is having an affair with a resident in the building. On their way back up to the apartment, Kim presses the button for the 4th floor. As soon as the elevator doors open, he notices that the red line points directly to the apartment where Yang's mistress lives. At that moment, Yang tries to step out, but Kim pulls him back to the 10th floor. The next day, when Kim arrives home with his sister and niece, he finds a package addressed to the resident of 4,000 won. Seizing the opportunity to confirm his suspicions, he personally takes it downstairs, hoping to identify his brother-in-law's secret lover. A few days later, the photo of Hai with the teacher spreads throughout the school, shocking both students and staff. Having lost everything important to him, teacher Siang Jin is consumed by guilt and shame. He decides to end it all. After visiting the crime scene, Han seeks out Yan at school and asks if she knows why her niece returned to school on the night of the tragedy. Yan urges him to find San's glasses, believing they will help uncover what happened. Meanwhile, Kim tails Yang and catches him at an upscale restaurant with his neighbor from 4001. Determined to expose him, Kim calls and asks where he is. Yang lies, claiming he's not in Seoul. Having proven Yang is a compulsive liar, Kim later shows up at the hotel where Yang is staying with his mistress. When confronted, Yang tries to explain himself and begs Kim to keep quiet until he can speak to Ryong. The next day, Kim packs his bags to leave, telling his sister he doesn't know when he'll see her again. While at work, he gets a message saying his sister crashed into a neighbor's car. Furious after learning of the affair, Ryan took her own car and repeatedly rammed Chin's vehicle, terrifying the woman. When Kim arrives, he tries to calm his sister, but Yang shows up and, instead of defending his wife, rushes to comfort his mistress. Enraged, Kim punches Yang, but Ryan stops the fight. Once the couple leave, Ryan confesses the truth to Kim. She is actually Yang's mistress, as Yang is married to Chae-ren.
When Kim discovered this, he ended the relationship and Ryan had an emotional breakdown. Later, after finding his niece's diary, Han learns that the glasses she owned allow the wearer to see something invisible to others. He questions Jan about the strange drawings in the diary. Jan explains the meaning of the red lines and, while Han finds the story hard to believe, he is convinced she isn't lying. That weekend, Jan starts a job as a receptionist at the Mian Hotel, working the night shift. Meanwhile, Han and Dong review all the information they've gathered so far in an attempt to find San's killer. When they connect all the photos of the people involved onto a single investigation board, they conclude that teacher Xiang Jin ended his life because of the guilt from pushing San. On Sunday, Yan is visited by two school friends who decide to keep her company at work. While at the hotel, they see a guest collect a room key. Kyung-jin recognizes her as someone from the school's administration department. Hours later, Mung returns home, puts on her glasses and gazes at the city, seeing millions of red lines floating in the sky. Back home, Yan turns on the TV and learns that a new victim was killed the night before. The suspect was arrested near the scene and confessed everything with a smile. When she sees his image, she notices he is wearing a pair of glasses identical to San's, realizing there are other glasses with the same ability to see the S-lines. The next day, after class, Yan approaches Yin and invites him to visit his swimming school. Knowing she likes quiet places, he uses the opportunity to spend time alone. Since he first saw Yan, Yin has been interested in her, and thanks to Kyung-jin, he finally has an excuse to get close. Without fully understanding why, Yan feels an instinctive pull toward the water. Yin reacts instantly, jumping into the pool to keep her from drowning. While they wait for their uniforms to dry, the two share instant noodles. During their conversation, Yan opens up about her unusual ability. She can see faint red lines above people's heads. She points out that, like her, neither Yin nor Kyung-jin have these red threads. Although Yin can't make sense of what the lines mean, he assures her that he believes her. The following weekend, Mong reserves room 206 at the Mason Hotel. As Yan is cleaning the hallway, she hears Mong speaking to herself in the mirror, almost as if rehearsing something she plans to say. Months earlier, in that same room, Mong had discovered a pair of glasses that allowed her to see strange S-shaped lines. Since then, her favorite pastime has been spying on the guests in room 205, through a hidden hole in the wall. One day, she spots Mr. Lee, the music teacher she had secretly admired since their first meeting. When she learns that he's seeing Callan, she's devastated. Acting on impulse, she extends her hotel stay for another night. Later, when Callan arrives to meet Lee, Mong strikes him with a fire extinguisher and disguises herself in Callan's clothes to take her place. Lee is baffled to see his coworker in his room, and even more unsettled when she starts reciting phrases she had been practicing earlier. As she approaches, Lee pushes her away and tries to leave, but collapses before reaching the door. Mong admits that she slipped sleeping pills into his drink and stays by his side waiting for him to wake. But her plan unravels when she notices a growing blood stain on the pillow, something she never intended. When the red thread above Lee vanishes, Mong is overwhelmed with guilt and begins harming herself with a stapler. Hours later, Callan frees herself and runs into Yan, who helps untie her completely. Callan rushes into room 205 only to find Lee lifeless. Detective Han arrives shortly after, searching the room for Mong's glasses, but coming up empty. Yan later tells the detective that Mong always wore those glasses at work, and mourns that they can distort the wearer's mind. She adds that Mong's red thread was never connected to Lee, leaving the true reason for her attack a mystery. Later that night, after the police leave, Detective Han returns to the hotel and drains the bathtub where Mong's body had been found. At the bottom, he discovers the glasses. Out of curiosity, he puts them on and for the first time, sees the red threads Yan had been talking about.